Hi, and welcome to Financial Planning Explained, and I'm your host, Mike Menninger, Certified Financial Planner, owner and founder of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. I'm really pleased to have a guest with me today. Normally we have a variety of different guests on different topics, but this is unusual. Now, as we always talk about, my show is really designed to be educational in nature of the 6 areas of financial planning. And, me being very right brain and analytical and stuff, today's guest is really, I'm excited to be with you today, Autumn. This is awesome. It's Autumn Nessler. Autumn has a company. She's a certified retirement options coach. And what she does is she does the soft side of the retirement planning, which, quite frankly, when we're dealing with clients who are about to retire, we always tell them, go in with a plan. Because if you don't go in with a plan, the problem is a lot of people identify themselves with their job.
Yes.
And they had a social life because every day they went in to their job, and all of a sudden now they're home, and it's remarkable how many people just develop really bad, poor habits, sitting on the couch, eating potato chips, gaining weight, poor health, and die prematurely. And now, so what you do is you help people in the soft side of the retirement, which you and I make a great team, because you can help the people design their lifestyle.
Yes.
While I design, can they afford that lifestyle?
Correct.
So I kind of introduce you, but introduce yourself if you could.
Well, thank you, Mike. And a great way to, by the way, thank you for introducing me in that way, and a pretty good understanding of what it is that I do. But first, thank you for doing this kind of programming and for inviting me to be part of
my pleasure.
Your group of guests, because again, financial planning, as you know, is so hard to get our heads around, and having someone who can explain it in a way that I can talk about it easily. So kudos to the work that you're doing. So I always like to tell people, I'm asked often, how did you end up doing this kind of work?
Well, I was funny you say that. So Autumn, how did you end up doing this kind of work?
Well, as I tell people, this work found me.
Okay.
Right? Millions of women out there today, as we've talked about, that are thinking about what could my life look like if and when I leave the big job, right? Most of us, though, in thinking about that, are dreadfully unprepared to even get our heads around doing something like that. Because if we left, when we leave, who would we be? We'd lose our sense of identity.
Just talked about that. That's right.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many things that happen to us that we think, gosh, I'm just going to stay put, because thinking about doing this, leaving the big job, is too all-consuming. I was one of those women.
Well, I was going to say that. I figured.
I was one of those women, and as I like to say, the decision to make and leave the big job was made for me by my husband's heart. After many hard events, many heart-to-heart conversations with myself in bathroom mirrors, I realized it was time to make a change in my life, It was time. But I had the same fears, questions, trepidations about who would I be without my business card? When everybody else was working Monday through Friday, what would I be doing? How would I continue to utilize my skills, my time, my talent?
Good question. I'm still waiting for the answer.
So all the things. So that being said, I won't go into all the details now about the program that I found, that I attended for my own planning, but suffice it to say that I came out of that program with a much better appreciation, a much better understanding of what I could do. The program was called Retirement Options, but what I could do from a non-financial retirement planning standpoint to plan my own intentional life.
Right.
Okay?
And that's your company name.
It is.
An Intentional Life.
By intention.
By intention, there you go. I love it.
By intention. So part of that was also realizing and really focusing, knowing what I went through, the fears, the trepidation that I went through. I thought, what, if I can assist women like myself to not look at this with such fear and trepidation, but instead to say, I've got this, not a problem, then that's really what made me kind of focus on women, start my practice. The women that I work with, the women that I coach, have done it all. Career, marriage, possibly motherhood, as I like to say, all while in high heels.
So it's funny you ask. I was thinking about this. Do you work with a lot of women who decide to move from corporate America to raising a family? Or is it mostly for people who are leaving for good for, call it retirement?
Well, or maybe a combination of both.
Okay.
In that they said, you know what, I don't want my tombstone to say she worked.
Right.
They want to, and I like to say, I believe that a woman kind of hits that mark when she gets into her 50s, okay? Because all of a sudden the reality of, I've done it, I've raised the kids, I'm doing she's probably taking care of parents.
It's time for me.
It's time for me.
Right.
So whether it's leaving fully, post-career life, or whether it's having work play a different role in their lives, is really when they start to think about what's next.
That's interesting. Someone I wanted to introduce you to, who's actually going to be on my show, intentionally, I'm just excited to bring her on to talk about how she blew out of corporate America to chase her dream of landscaping, or landscaping design.
Okay.
So she did it because she loved it. And how did she do the transition? So there was that, and trust me when I tell you, people would much rather work for themselves, doing the things they want to do, than being required to be at the office at 8 o'clock in the morning doing what somebody else tells you to do.
Right.
So there's a whole lot to be said about that.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And especially during these post-pandemic, or whatever we're calling this now.
I have no idea. Are we post? Are we still in it? Who knows?
Who knows? But the reality is, it's given us all the opportunity to rethink what's important to me. And I think, there's millions of women. I might have mentioned to you, the data is actually pretty disturbing, that millions of women have left the workforce, are leaving the workforce, thinking about downsizing careers, all that because of this pandemic. Because they've been working from home. Oh, and by the way, now I'm responsible for my the children's learning outcomes. Just way too much.
So it's younger women.
Younger, but also women who didn't think that they would be thinking about post-career.
Right.
They weren't thinking about it. They weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
They saw that in the future. I was one of those women. I expected for me to be doing what I was doing for, till they told me to leave. I didn't expect to be doing what I'm doing now back then.
What line of work were you in when you were working?
Well, 35 years of working for very different careers. Different careers. So my last full-time world was in sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a grind.
Yes,
it's a grind, and it's exhausting. Can be exhausting. And because your sales goals, and you're always on the go, and there's a lot of pressure, and I'm just not into that either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, it gives you, as I said, a lot of opportunity, which I did, to really pause. Because one of the things that you should know about, this post-career life, so as women, we go through so many transitions in our life, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
We've got the T-shirt. At the end of the day, this is probably the biggest transition that we ever have to think about planning. Before, and you've been in this world, retirement used to be a destination, right? You retired, you got the gold watch, all of that. Now it's a journey. It is. It is a journey.
Well, people are living longer.
Right.
Okay, and people are leaving their jobs oftentimes because they're being downsized, or they're burnt on it, or and I can give all yours, but they get done and they're like, now I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that a lot of the guys do is they like to play golf. Right. So they get a job at the golf course so that they can work, 8 or 10 hours a week so they can play golf anytime they want.
Right, exactly.
And I know a handful of the ladies who retire because they want to spend time with their grandchildren.
Right. And I will tell you that, and you mentioned, about funding our retirement and whatnot. Women's retirement, this is one of the other reasons why I focus on working with women. Women's retirement is so very different than a man's, right?
In what way?
Well, many ways, but what I found over time in lots of research is that one, we have to work longer to fund our retirement. You mentioned
by
it.
that?
Well, on average, a woman will spend 12 years out of the workforce. Caring for kids,
Right.
caring for parents, all those, on average.
Right.
Now, think about the impact financially, Social Security, not contributing to my 401k at my company, all those things, right? So we're gonna have to work longer. We also live longer, sorry to say, 4 to 7 years longer. And there's an 80 to 90% chance that we will be solo agers.
Outliving your husband.
Because of divorce or widowhood.
Right.
And then finally, the other thing is we have been so busy caring for everybody else. The idea of putting me first, or as I like to say, put on that oxygen mask first, like they tell you on airplanes.
Right.
Is that most of us don't even know where
How
to
to
begin,
do it.
how to do that, and feeling that it's selfish to do that. But the other piece of it is that, and I believe this because typically households are now two-income families, right? Two-income households. At the end of the day, you divide and conquer. You deal with this, I'll deal with this, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I've seen it.
But as you know, many women do not feel confident or competent when it comes to financial issues, right? Correct?
You're absolutely correct. Well, part of that is we live in a very paternalistic society.
Yeah.
And so whether it's the men enjoy it or the men are the leaders of the family, if you will, and it's been, and by the way, this is something I've absolutely noticed and have said, two of my soft spots are divorced women and widows.
Yeah.
Because I feel sorry for the fact that oftentimes they're thrust into this new environment where they don't know what to do, and I feel protective of them because, quite frankly, I don't like financial advisors.
Right.
I find that too many of them, and I'm afraid to say that higher than 50%, care more about this chair than they care about that chair, and that sickens me. And so I almost feel like I want to protect the woman because, and it's no fault of theirs.
Right.
They either had more things on their plate, or like I said, divide and conquer, or the husband just did it because that's just the way the culture is.
Right.
I see that all the time.
Yeah. And I think you've first of all, you're so much further down the road because, as you mentioned, 80 to 90% of widows will leave their financial advisors.
I heard that, yeah.
Because they don't feel like they've been served well. So the idea that you're saying, this is an area that I could probably get more educated about is half the battle. Because at the end of the day, our needs, the way you address those needs, how you educate us is very, very different than what you do with your male clients, right? So you need to have a better understanding, which you say, hey, listen, I need to get better at this. So that's good for you because you're right. It's a whole different set of needs about what a woman understands. For us, it's not just about running out of money. It's about feeling like we're empowered.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
Right? And that's kind of where,
because in many years, and I'm dealing with clients just like that right now, where I'm teaching them.
Right. Yes.
And the comment they make is like, my goodness, I feel so good because I feel empowered by being able to do it.
Right.
We're up against the break, so we'll be picking up.
Okay.
Please stay tuned. We'll be taken after this short break.
Have you saved enough for retirement? Are you financially prepared for an emergency or unexpected event? Have you thought about your financial future?
Hi, I'm Mike Menninger, founder of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. For over 20 years, we have been answering our clients' questions just like these as we develop unique and comprehensive financial plans tailored to meet their needs. When addressing your financial plan, we incorporate your entire financial picture, including taxes, estate planning, as well as investment planning and retirement planning. So call us today for a complimentary, no obligation consultation.
A unique approach to financial planning.
Welcome back to Financial Planning Explained, and I'm your host, Mike Menninger. And again, I'm still, whatever you want to call it, I'm pleased to have Autumn Nessler here as my guest today. And so the first segment, we're talking more about, why it's different, how the women differentiate from the men in their work life. And so what I'd like to know is, what do you do for the ladies who then decide that they're going to move on to a new chapter in their life?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Well, so first and foremost, I mentioned biggest transition that we're going to have to deal with, right? 20 to 30 years potentially, on average, a woman will spend this time. Over 57,000 hours of time.
Mm-hmm. It's 1/3 of their life.
Quite a lot of time not to have a plan for, right?
Of course.
But the concept of it, the idea of it is too overwhelming. So my job is, as a navigator, as a guide, to help them realize that, it's all within them. They've got this, they've got the opportunity, they're going to take the best of who they've become and apply it to what's next. And really, the whole idea of this planning, we do a lot of, I give a lot of assessments. We talk, I want to hear their story, where they are, what brought them to today.
Goals and objectives,
Goals
I'm sure.
And objectives.
Of course.
We look at 6 very specific life areas.
Really?
In their
Okay.
life. Right?
Okay.
And then take each one of those areas and dig deeper and wider. And one of the areas, for instance, is personal development. How do they want to spend their time? Is it volunteering? Do they want a lifelong learning? How do they want to spend that time? Because work gives us, Mike, 5 distinct benefits. And we need to think about replacing those benefits. Certainly it gives us financial remuneration,
Of course.
right? Okay. It gives us a sense of time management. We know what we're doing Monday through Friday, what the world is doing,
Right, yeah, well-
right? Monday through Friday. So what's going to happen when that's not
Well,
there?
yeah, time management is very important.
Time management. A sense of purpose,
Yep.
right? A sense of
Importance, I would think.
Right. How do I want to utilize my time and talents? I don't use the term career and work. Many of us will have to work for many years to come, even past the traditional 65. Many of us will be working for a variety of reasons. But at the end of the day, thinking about, instead of using the term career and work, how do we want to utilize our time and talents? So we'll look at that. We'll look at, again, a sense of what's important to me, my own kind of development as an individual. So there's a lot of things we take a look at. How are we going to replace those work benefits? We're going to look at those 6 life areas that are so important to an intentional life plan. And we spend a lot of time, though, really, they're doing a lot of work. There's a lot of self-reflection. I give them a lot of assignments, a lot of things that we do. We meet typically,
Hey, wait, I thought retirement's not supposed to, I'm done working.
Yes.
I could see all this,
Yeah.
To a great extent, you're a counselor.
Correct.
Okay? A coach, counselor, advisor,
Right.
All of the above. By the way, I'm a counselor too, a lot of times, trust me.
Yeah.
And it's really, so what does it entail? So I'm just trying to think, when I do plans, I also usually give them a long list of strategies, specific strategies and recommendations. What I like to do is to tell them the whys behind it.
Right.
Again, I'm a little bit more right-brained, but how do you get them to buy into it? Or do they buy into it just in the fact that they're working with you, you're a coach, and all of a sudden they're realizing, sometimes just when talking to somebody
Right.
and hearing yourself talk and say it,
Right.
how does that all, and what concrete thing do they walk away with when working with you?
So, and this type of planning, the non-financial aspects,
Right.
and you mentioned it in the last segment, is that typically it marries up well with the work you're doing with your financial advisor. 9 times out of 10, your financial advisor is saying, so tell me what that part of your life is going to look like. Tell me about retirement. What's your lifestyle going to look like, right? So ideally, you're going to start doing this kind of planning, timing-wise, 15 years out from when you leave the job, right?
Okay.
That's ideal.
Yeah, well, ideal, right?
That's ideal. Then the model says 15, 10 years, 5 years, a year out, and then every year thereafter.
Right.
Okay? So
No different than what we do.
Correct.
It's just that ours is a little more mathematic and concrete, yours is a little more abstract.
Correct.
But it takes any good plan, the longer you plan,
Right.
the better and more likely you are.
Correct.
The only thing that we can't plan, the only one thing I can guarantee, I'm not allowed to use the G word, okay?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
the G word, the guarantee, I'm not allowed to,
Right.
but I'm going to use it
Yeah.
anyway. The only thing you can guarantee,
Right.
is nothing's guaranteed.
Right.
Something's going to change.
Right, exactly.
And I would imagine that you hopefully work with your clients to be able to get them to understand that.
Right,
Not everything
correct.
goes to plan.
Correct. So I told you ideal, 15, 10.
Right.
Realistically, most times women will seek me out is like a year or two
I was
from.
just after or before?
Before.
Yeah. Well, it's
or,
better.
Or
After.
when they
Or right
realize
around.
that the honeymoon, or oh my gosh, this honeymoon, oh, I want to take care of my grandchildren 5 days a week. The reality is that lasts for X amount of time
Right,
before
couple
the
weeks.
reality is,
That-
are you kidding me?
Right, look
is
at
it,
this.
Right? So it's either a couple years out before or a couple years after that they start to realize.
Before is better.
Right. Is that all there is? And I need to think about what I'm going to do and what it's going to look like and what will get me excited to get out of bed in the morning. What is it that'll, what do I want to do? I'm putting my oxygen mask on first. This is my time. So that being said, what they can expect from me is after working with me, we do the assessments, we meet on an ongoing basis. There's a lot of work that I give them to do, reflection and whatnot. At the end of it, the deliverable, one of the deliverables, is a 12-month intentional life plan. 6 areas outlined, goals and objectives, timeframes. I use the design, if you're familiar with engineering, there's a design model.
I'm an engineer.
So you understand, I use a design model as the foundation for what I
Right.
do. So it's about brainstorming and ideating and prototyping and test driving, all those kinds of things. So it's a highly interactive process. Mike, this is not the kind of plan you do once, you put it in a drawer and it's done.
Oh, come on, are you
It's a
kidding me?
living, working document, right?
Just as ours is. And you know what? The only thing I can
Exactly.
guarantee about a financial plan is it's wrong. Because
Right.
nothing goes to plan.
Right, exactly.
You build
Right.
flexibilities, but again, we're dealing with, I deal with more of the concrete say, but I do talk to them about what they want to do, but
Right.
I don't coach them.
Right.
I don't
Right.
coach their,
Right.
I mean, they're calling me and believe me, a lot of dirty laundry gets hung out when my clients come to see me.
Sure.
And I hear the accountants are the same way.
Yeah.
It's just, but
Yeah.
it's enjoyable. And the good news about what you do, and also about what I do, is that we get to work with people during a very critical
Yes.
time of their life,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is their goal.
Right.
And
Right.
you're helping them achieve the ultimate goal is happiness.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. And fulfillment.
fulfillment, okay, and I kind of think
Right.
fulfillment leads to happiness.
Yes.
I consider the
Yes.
two
Yes.
hand in hand, and I'm telling you what, that's what is wonderful about both of our careers.
Right.
Helping people.
One of the things you mentioned was about what should they expect from working with me? And I mentioned the 12-month plan. The real key is they've learned a process that they can then do on their own on an annual basis. Remember, it's a 12-month plan.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens the next 12 months? They've learned a process that they can then come up with.
They get better at doing it.
They can always come back to me, always. If
Right.
they, questions, concern, whatever it is. At the end of the day, though, it's about, I tell women all the time, one of my favorite things to say to them all the time is, you've got this. You've been through so many different transitions in your life.
Right, this is easy.
And you did it with 100% success because we're here talking about it, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, this is just one more. It's not, and I don't like the term, it's about reinventing ourselves. It's not really. It's about taking the best version of ourselves that's already there and putting it to good use.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's about, and doing this every year on an annual basis. I think I shared with you, I do what I preach, right? On an annual basis, I put together my intentional life plan. My husband and I actually bring that planning we go on an annual retreat. And we do our planning together, both as a couple and as individuals.
You raised a question that I wanted to ask you. Do you incorporate the husbands
Oh.
or the...
Well, no. So I strictly work with the women.
Okay.
Okay, and I then coach them on how to have those conversations with their spouses, their partners, right? But I'm not bringing anybody in. I'm not bringing in any partners or spouses or anybody else.
But what if they wanted to? You encourage against?
I don't encourage against. I enable them to feel
Do it
very
on their own.
comfortable and confident in having that conversation.
There's a lot to be said about that. Ironically, I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
I try to encourage both spouses to participate in the planning.
Yes.
Now, because you want this other spouse to buy in, but at the same time too, and I've had this backfire almost, that we don't get a chance to meet because the one spouse doesn't really want to.
Right.
And so
Yes.
you can't
Right.
force them to
Right.
do something.
Right.
So, but having them engaged, and that's the thing that, I try to, I can have a 3-hour meeting with someone on something that there's no way in the world that they ever think that they could do more than 45 minutes. But trust me when I tell you,
Right.
when you're talking to them about their stuff,
Yeah.
they're very interested. So
Yeah.
I can certainly imagine the buy-in. And I have to imagine, much like you are with a new client, I am with a new client, you spend a lot of time with them early on, and then it becomes a little bit more maintenance, except for times
Right.
when there are issues.
So look at me. I'm an accountability partner.
That's true.
I am one of their advisors. When I first start to work with a woman, I will say to her, who else besides me are you going to kind of report into about your goals and your dreams and your wishes?
That's a good point.
And she will give me a list of,
Oh, good.
this person, and we map out an advisory report.
Oh, nice.
The other key thing is she knows that before every session, she gets an email with all these different things that I want done. She knows that we're going to start every session with me kind of saying, tell me about what's going on? So that conversation that she needs to have, not just with her spouse partner, but the grown kids or her parents or all these different people, I'm going to say to her, so tell me about that conversation.
That's good.
How did it go?
You build confidence.
Oh.
So speaking of accountability, guess what? I'm accountability to the station because the time is up already.
no,
If you can
it
believe
can't
that. This has been absolutely wonderful.
I'm glad it worked well, yeah.
This is just great. So what I would like you to do is just kind of take a moment and look into the camera. Tell people how they can get a hold of you, and just look into the camera, just how people can get a hold of you.
Great. So first of all, the way I typically work with someone is the first thing that we do is we set up what I call a clarity session. It's free. So a woman can ask about the questions she has. I want to learn about her story. And then from there, we then can get into whether or not it makes sense to work together, what it could look like. In order to set that clarity session up, again, it's free. She can email me at autumn@designretirement.org. Let me say it again, it's autumn@designretirement.org. She can certainly call me at 215-870-2960 or visit my website and contact me that way. And that's designretirement.org. I can't wait to hear your story. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Autumn. That was awesome. I appreciate that. So the moral of the story is we work together on this, and that we do the building blocks more from the math side and from the how do you do it side, particularly from the female perspective. That's where Autumn comes in to be able to help with the retirement planning. And the two really go hand in hand together, because if you're going to retire, you need a retirement plan for both what do you plan to do and how are you going to fund it. I handle the funding part. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Autumn. That was a
pleasure.
terrific show.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody enjoyed today's show and learned something. And please feel free to give Autumn a call at your convenience.